Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into Federico Chiesa's first season at Liverpool.
Yeah, it's one of those situations, isn't it? A big name arrives, and you're keen to see how they fit in, especially at a top club.
Exactly. And we know you want the full picture, quickly. So we've gathered quite a bit of articles from This is Anfield, Sky Sports, Goal.com, Breaking the Lines.
Transfermarkt stats, of course. Even looked at some fan discussions on Reddit to get that wider feel.
Right. Our mission here is to understand Chiesa's Liverpool journey so far. Why the limited minutes? What's the real story? And, what could happen next?
Let's start with the basics, his arrival. He actually joined quite late in the window, late August 2024.
And the fee was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, reportedly around $10 million up front, then maybe another $2.5 million in add-ons.
Which, considering the market.
Exactly. And Sky Sports mentioned Barcelona were sniffing around, even Saudi clubs. So Liverpool weren't the only ones interested.
Tells you something about his perceived quality at that point. And it's a long-term deal, right? Transfermarkt has him contracted until June 2028.
Yeah, so on paper, a commitment.
And he came with quite the reputation. I mean, his whole senior career before this was Italy, Fiorentina, then Juve.
And his dad, Enrico Chiesa, he was a well-known player himself.
Yeah, especially Fiorentina fans remember him well. Federico had some great seasons, like that 1920 campaign at Fiorentina, 19-goal involvements.
And even his first season at Juventus was pretty productive. 8 goals, 8 assists in Serie A, I think.
Something like that, yeah. So the feeling when Liverpool signed him, it was almost like, wow, have they got a steal here?
Definitely. One piece called it a signing with little downside. You can see why.
Plus, the Euro 2020 win with Italy, that's major tournament experience.
Absolutely. Winning mentality, proven on a big stage.
Yeah.
So you combine that pedigree, the relatively low fee, the optimism made sense.
It really did. Low financial risk, potentially high reward in terms of adding attacking depth.
But then reality bites. And the reality at Liverpool, especially for a right winger, is, well, Mo Salah.
It's the elephant in the room, isn't it? The Mo Salah problem, as some call it. How do you get minutes when he's there, playing at that level, week in, week out?
It's a huge challenge. And the numbers bear that out, don't they?
They really do. We're talking very limited starts. One source said 3 starts in 12 appearances. Another mentioned 2 in 11.
Transfermarkt has it slightly higher, maybe 13 appearances, but the total minutes are still low, around 400 minutes, across all competitions.
Yeah. Barely equates to 4 full games. And the key thing, mentioned again and again, is the lack of Premier League starts. Almost none.
Which, for a player of his profile, coming from Juventus, that's tough. It speaks volumes about breaking into that front line.
It does. It really highlights the difficulty. You need patience, obviously, but also you need to grab any chance you get.
And that brings us to the moments he has had. Because there have been flashes.
Definitely. That goal in the Carabao Cup final against Newcastle, everyone points to that.
A decisive final goal. Even though they lost the match 2-1 in the end, it was a high-profile moment, showed he can deliver under pressure.
It did. And digging into the stats, it gets a bit more nuanced.
How so?
Well, despite the few minutes, he apparently ranks pretty high, percentile-wise, for things like shot-creating actions per 90 minutes and expected assisted goals per 90.
Okay, so when he is playing, he's involved in setting up chances. That sounds promising.
It does, but there's a flip side.
Go on.
The same analysis suggests he's actually among the worst for non-penalty expected goals per 90, yet he's high in just shots per 90.
Right. So lots of shots, but perhaps not great quality shots, maybe from difficult angles or outside the box.
That seems to be the interpretation. Taking shots, but maybe not getting into those really high percentage scoring positions consistently, it's a bit of a puzzle.
Interesting. So involved in build-up, creating for others potentially, but maybe not the sharp end of the chances himself often enough.
Perhaps. Though one source did calculate his goals and assists per 90 for Liverpool across all competitions at 0.69.
Oh, okay.
Which is apparently his highest rate since his very first season at Juventus. So his direct output, when averaged out per minute played, isn't actually bad at all.
Right, that's a good counterpoint, which fuels the argument some people make.
That he should have been rotated in more.
Exactly. That maybe Slot's reliance on Salah, while understandable, perhaps cost the team a bit of freshness or a different dimension Chiesa could offer.
Yeah, that's a fair debate. How much do you stick with your absolute star versus giving others a chance to build rhythm?
It's the classic dilemma for managers at top clubs with deep squads. Finding that balance is key and not always easy.
And this lack of consistent game time, it seems to have led to some frustration, maybe even among some fans.
Well, there are reports mentioning some fans felt he was being written off a bit quickly, particularly after a couple of games where he didn't shine.
Which ones were mentioned?
The Carabao Cup game against Southampton and an FA Cup tie against Plymouth Argyle.
Ah, the Plymouth game. That one seems significant.
Yeah. Reports suggest the Liverpool staff were genuinely concerned by his performance in that one. Got a pretty low rating, like a 4.10 in one outlet.
Ouch. What was the criticism?
Things like being loose on the ball and running down blind alleys, just generally struggling to make an impact in the way they needed.
And the suggestion is that performance really hurt his standing.
Apparently so, that it set him back in the manager's eyes, which, could directly explain why the opportunities dried up even more afterwards.
That makes sense. It's one thing being behind Salah, but if you don't impress in the cup games, you destart.
Exactly. Your stock inevitably falls. And then there's the perspective from journalists suggesting Slot has seen him day in, day out in training.
And just maybe doesn't rate him as highly as, say, Nunez or Jota right now.
That seems to be the implication, that the brief flash of quality at Wembley in the final, those 10-15 minutes, shouldn't maybe overshadow what's seen consistently on the training pitch.
Right, because training performance is huge. We don't see that, but the manager does.
Absolutely critical. Intensity, tactical understanding, consistency, that's where the real assessments are often made.
But interestingly, despite all this, the reports also consistently praise his attitude.
Yeah, that comes through. Good work ethic, positive influence around the squad, a brilliant guy, people want to succeed.
Which creates this slightly strange picture, doesn't it? Good attitude, clear talent, moments of quality, but not enough game time.
And that inevitably leads to speculation about the future.
For sure. Talk of a potential summer move, maybe a sale, maybe a loan.
Napoli's name keeps cropping up, especially if you were to go back to Italy. Apparently, Antonio Conte is an admirer, and there's a good relationship with their sporting director already.
That connection makes sense. A manager like Conte might feel he can get the best out of him consistently.
It's a plausible scenario. Sometimes a change of scenery, a different system, is what a player needs to reignite things.
It's also worth remembering his signing wasn't really to fill a midfield gap or anything. He came into an area where Liverpool were already quite strong offensively.
True. He provided cover, depth, rather than plugging an obvious hole, which maybe makes it harder to demand immediate, regular starts.
But then you have his father's comments, which paint a different picture.
Right. Enrico Chiesa came out saying Federico is very happy at Liverpool. No regrets about the move, sees it as a great opportunity.
And emphasize that Federico's just focused on training hard, being ready for his chance, drawing on his own playing days, perhaps.
Yeah, basically saying, keep your head down, work hard, your time will come. Classic advice. It was also noted he was the only fit senior outfield player not on international duty back in March, giving him more focused time training with Slot.
So a public message of patience and commitment from the players' camp.
Exactly, which contrasts a bit with the transfer speculation swirling around.
So summing it all up, it's been, well, a stop-start first season is probably fair. Definitely frustrating for him, you'd imagine.
Hugely frustrating. Way fewer minutes than he's used to, even compared to when he was coming back from his ACL injury at Juventus.
He arrived with promise, for a decent fee, but that massive hurdle of Mo Salah, plus maybe not seizing every single limited chance.
And possibly not showing enough in training consistently for the manager's liking. It's all combined to limit his impact so far.
We've seen the glimpses, the underlying stats show some positive signs in terms of creativity when he plays.
But it hasn't translated into forcing his way into the starting lineup regularly.
So we're left with this kind of tension. His father says he's happy and committed.
While some reports suggest the club might be looking at options, maybe cutting their losses or finding him a loan, it raises bigger questions, really.
Absolutely. Like, what does it actually take for a talented player to break into a team that's already successful and has established stars in your position? Is talent enough?
And how much stock do you put in those promising stats from limited minutes? Are they a true reflection or just small sample size noise?
It leaves you wondering, doesn't it? Is Chiesa's situation just bad timing? A good player in the wrong place with Salah ahead of him?
Or does he still have that top-level gear to find that consistency needed to really make his mark at a club like Liverpool if he gets more consistent chances down the line? It's definitely one to watch.